Story 1. I confronted my grandpa's neighbor because she was blasting loud sounds that were scaring our dog, but instead of turning it down, she said my liver looks delicious. Today, she put a dead bird on our doorstep. Posted by you/assignment cold 8106. Just thought I'd share a weird/creepy encounter I had this weekend. My 22M grandpa's neighbor is probably in her late 30s. I'm staying with him for a while because of a roommate situation. His property is a few acres, and the neighbor's lot is similar. They are separated by trees. My grandpa has a dog, an old German Shepherd. He's gotten sensitive to noises lately. Here's the problem. The neighbor is a Halloween fanatic. My grandpa said she puts her Halloween decor up in late August, but the issue isn't the decor, it's that she's got this odd soundscape. The soundscape includes a fireworks/gunshot type cluster of bangs that happen every so often. Given the distance between the homes, we shouldn't be able to hear any of it. Anyway, she runs it from about 5 p.m. until 10 p.m. They don't get trick-or-treaters or anything in this area, the houses are too far apart and have long private drives. So all of this is just for herself. My grandpa is too nice and conflict avoidant to do anything about it, but I feel so bad for the dog. After a day of the sounds triggering the dog, I went over and introduced myself. It was my first time meeting her, so I didn't want to immediately launch into my complaint. I went along with some conversation to build rapport. She was extremely chatty at first, asked a lot of questions about me, and even tried to guess my ethnicity. I have a racially ambiguous face, and she wanted to prove she could read my features or whatever. From there, she started telling me which celebrities I remind her of. I hadn't heard of any of them, and then she started talking about horror movies. I couldn't get a word in, so I had to interrupt her. I explained about our dog and started with, maybe you could consider using a different soundscape or turning it down? As soon as I brought this up, she got all cold. Her whole demeanor toward me changed, but she did agree to turn it down. She didn't. So I showed up at her door for the second time, yesterday. This is when it got weird. She answered the door in full costume and was putting on a character that she didn't feel the need to drop while talking to me. I tried to let her know I was going to make a noise complaint if she didn't adjust her soundscape. I asked her why she hadn't turned it down, but she ignored my question and instead told me I looked like I had a delicious liver, WTF. It's hard to express how frustrating it was. I said nothing. I just stared at her, irritated, hoping she'd drop the act. Instead of getting serious, she kept the weird voice going and told me, lower your eyebrow, why are you so grumpy? She also tried to reach out slowly to touch my face or something. I just turned around and left. This woman was still in her effing character. She said something after me, but I wasn't able to make it out enough to quote it here. I got home and made a noise complaint. The cops took my statement, then went over and talked with her. No more soundscape. Peace and quiet. Today, she left a dead bird on the doorstep. Relevant comments. Commenter. Do you have proof, like a Ring camera recording? Because it could just be a coincidence. Ops response. It's not a Ring, but my grandpa has an old porch camera. It was her, I could tell from the Halloween wig. I'm just hoping the bird was already dead when she found it and not murdered. Commenter 2. Out of interest, what was her character? Ops response. So, unfortunately, I didn't ask. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I think it was just some kind of witch or demon costume, long white hair, long nails, red lipstick or face paint. She had on a robe with a hood that covered most of it, though. Commenter 3. Okay, this woman sounds deranged, psychotic, dangerous, and exactly my type. Is she single? Sorry about the dog, but if you set me up with her, I will totally change the soundscape and lower the volume. I love dogs and wouldn't be able to enjoy the spooky sounds knowing they are making a nearby dog panic. Ops response. Her lack of concern for dogs, maybe animals in general, is a deal breaker for most, but I'm glad you're not like that. She's all yours, man. Commenter 3. It would be a deal breaker, but I can change her, I hope. Update 8 days later. She doesn't play the soundscape anymore, but some things have happened. She stuck some weird ingredients to the door handle of my vehicle. I touched the stuff, and it got all over my hand. I had a feeling it was something witchy, so I asked on Reddit and learned that it was love spell ingredients. Assuming that was for me, but not completely discounting my grandpa, lol. A few days after she left me the bird, she turned the soundscape on just as I was passing her house during my run. From the way she timed it, turning it off when I had reached my grandpa's house, it was deliberate. I found it amusing because it was kind of clever. She wrote a note to me in my grandpa's native language, which is Korean. It's basically a copy of the phrase, if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you. WTF. The dog is safe, and nothing has happened to him. I have already mentioned this, but there is a police report/case number assigned to this incident, and I taught my grandpa what number to call so he can continue reporting other events if they happen, to add to the paper trail. He has working security cameras on his front and back porch that are fairly decent. This is not my permanent residence, but I'm sure he will be fine. Relevant comments. Commenter. Okay, this is creepy AF. A dead bird I can handle. Creepy Korean notes with cringe Nietzsche quotes? Pants crappingly terrifying. My offer's off the table, sorry. Ops response. You're the guy who wants to date my neighbor, right? Commenter. Lol, I was until I read the part about the note she left in Korean. I'm out. If I were you, I'd get a protective order ASAP. Second update 13 days later. A few people reached out to see if anything happened on Halloween. I was going to wait to provide an update until there was a conclusion, but I'm not sure when that might be. To avoid spamming, I won't be making any other updates until this matter is resolved. To answer the question I received the most, I wasn't at my grandpa's place on Halloween or the following day, but he told me he saw the neighbor in the woods by his property line. She was wearing a costume, something resembling the girl from The Ring. He said he noticed her standing there, facing the house, in the middle of the day on Halloween, but other than that, nothing happened. I was here on Saturday, and that's when she threw a party. It was raining, but you could hear the bass from her music, and there were cars in her driveway. Around 10 p.m., the doorbell rang, and when I answered, it was her, looking just like my grandpa had described, same costume. I couldn't see her face that well through all the hair, but I recognized her voice. She seemed panicked and was speaking so fast I couldn't make out everything she was saying, but the gist of it was that she needed help and wanted me to call an ambulance. Before I could process what was happening or even say anything, she hugged me. It wasn't really a normal hug, but I don't know how else to describe it. Currently, I have an arm sling for an injury, so when she slammed into me, that arm got sandwiched between us, and the sudden pain made me tense up and freeze. I genuinely thought she was in distress and believed her because it seemed different from the time she was acting like some character. I think I said something like, "It's okay, I'll help you," in an attempt to reassure her, and with my free hand, I tried to push her head away. She was clinging to me so hard I didn't know what to do. She was making these weird hiccuping sounds and was covered in something that smelled like diesel. The party was still going, so I just assumed it had something to do with that. Maybe she was intoxicated or under the influence of something. I told her I needed to get my phone so I could make the call. I asked her some questions, but she didn't answer. She eventually calmed down and let me go. She stood by the door, silent. I wanted to get my phone first anyway, but by the time I returned, she was gone. I checked the camera, and it showed she had walked off the porch. The police took 50 minutes to arrive that night. I explained what happened and showed them the porch camera footage. They went to her house for a wellness check, and an ambulance showed up too. They told me to stay at my house, so I didn't go with them. Today, she came by looking normal. She asked why I called the cops on her party and completely denied it was her at my door the other night. I didn't bother with the conversation after that, I just shut the door in her face. Since my last update, she has found my Reddit account, so I won't disclose any next steps. I thought about not posting any more updates altogether, but I felt bad about leaving people hanging. Op in the comments. I'm 6 feet 2 inches, and the top of her head barely reached my shoulder. Her lunge at me was sudden. I don't understand why she did that. I definitely didn't see it coming. I was straining to listen to what she was saying because she was talking so fast and at a low volume. It was raining really hard, and I couldn't see her face, which might have helped me hear her better, if that makes sense. In the middle of whatever she was saying, she hugged me. It totally threw me off, but I thought she was in a crisis, and fighting her off wasn't my first instinct. The shooting pain from her pressing into my injury made me freeze up too. All of this happened really fast, and I didn't have time to process anything. When I write it out, it seems like there was time, but there wasn't. In hindsight, the more I think back to how she behaved, she was in character and definitely doing her acting thing all over again. I feel so stupid for falling for whatever that was because I immediately focused on helping. Third update 3 months later. This will be my final update. I'll get the sad part over with first. My grandpa's dog died, from old age, at the end of last year. I was with him when it happened. It was something we were anticipating, so I don't suspect the neighbor at all. My grandpa was devastated though, because they were both old guys together. But he also never went anywhere because of his dog. After the dog died, I convinced my grandpa to go visit my parents with me. TLDR, I, finally, have been granted a protection order, specifically, a court-ordered one, which is why I held off on my update. It was a frustrating experience and more complicated because it involved a neighbor. Additionally, they initially didn't see a significant risk factor. I ended up moving, which I believe helped the process. There has been no contact from her since the order. Some things that happen between updates. 1. There's a homeless guy who has a dog. He's always at this gas station I go to. I decided to find him and donate the jacket our dog used to wear. It was a really nice one from Carhartt. I gave him the jacket, then went inside. When I came out, he told me someone was touching my motorcycle. His description wasn't great, he's a man of few words, and most of them were incoherent, but he did say it was a woman. The CCTV footage was poor quality and low frame rate. The owner let me record the screen with my phone. She either parked out of frame somewhere or had walked, but it looked like it could be her. This entire experience sadly made me realize that I think I'm kinda face blind. It was difficult to tell what she was doing, but it didn't look like much. 2. She called my mom's small business with a fake accent to ask about me. I have no association with the business. I have no idea how she found it. My mom remarried, so even our last names are different. 3. I had roses delivered to me on a few occasions. Ironically, it was the first time I had ever received flowers. I put on welding gloves to throw them in the trash, but when I came home, my grandpa had displayed them in a vase in his house. Explaining stalking to my grandpa has been a struggle, after which he told me that it had nothing to do with the roses. 4. She paid a random person to approach me while I was in a grocery store. This person asked me questions, none of them stood out to me, some I didn't understand. My mind blanked a little because his approach was so abrupt. He came back shortly after his attempt to engage me to apologize and tell me he was paid to ask me things. I was still very confused at this point. I thought I was about to experience an influencer in the wild or something. He offered to take me outside to point out the car. I got paranoid because he was being so pushy about it, and I was already half restrained by my own arm sling at the time. He also refused to tell me anything, wouldn't even say if it was a male or female, unless I went outside with him. 5. I used to work at a barber shop, so I cut my own hair, and she claimed she had my hair clippings, which she took from the trash for something called her poppet. She said she does stuff to it to bring me comfort when I'm in pain and to make me feel good. 6. This was probably the worst one because it took a mental health toll on me. Although I moved, she developed a habit of trying to convince me she was around me, having small influences over or involvement in my day. I didn't necessarily believe her, but it impacted my ability to let my guard down. So I decided to test this. I posted a video on Reddit to this account, stressing about an incident that the people in that subreddit probably thought I was a clown for asking about. But I knew she monitored my account. I also suspected she was monitoring my friend's Instagram account, through which she was sussing out information about me and my whereabouts indirectly. I had him post his POV of the same incident I had posted on Reddit. Anyway, I mostly did this to soothe my own paranoia. It felt reassuring to have some kind of proof that she was just making guesses to get under my skin because eventually, I received a cryptic message about how she was responsible for it and that it was just a warm-up. No sweetheart, it was the abyss, gazing right back. Story 2.
My boyfriend is guilt-tripping me into moving in with him, despite knowing my cat is dying, and wants me to pick him over my cat to prove I care about this relationship. Posted by you/catthrowaway1235. I, 24F, have been dating my boyfriend, 26M, for a little over a year now, and he really wants me to move in with him. There's just one problem, and it's my cat. My cat is 16 and dying. The vet says it would be unwise to expect him to live beyond 6 months. I've had this cat since I was a child, he's been there for me through everything. There are a few reasons I don't want to move. 1. Moving is really stressful for cats, and I don't want to cause any unnecessary stress for my old boy. And 2. My boyfriend has a fairly energetic Rottweiler, and my cat has never been good with dogs. He was almost killed by one when he was 2 years old. We had to amputate his leg because it was so badly crushed and injured. I understand that my boyfriend wants me to be close to him. I want that too, but is it really so much to ask for a few months until my cat passes away? It hurts me so much that he keeps calling me unfair and not committed to this relationship. I am committed. But my longest friend is dying, and I want him to be comfortable. He doesn't seem to grasp how important my cat is to me. He has never liked cats and even made the joke, when he's gone, I will finally be your number one man. I don't know how to handle this at all. Any advice is welcome. Relevant comments. Commenter. If he has a dog, how can he not understand what it's like to love an animal? Ops response. He doesn't think cats actually have emotions or anything. He's one of those people who think cats are evil and dogs are a saving grace, which was fine before. I understand that not liking cats is almost as common as liking them. Update 1 day later. First off, let me say I'm still shaking, so if this is a rambled mess, I'm sorry. All your kind words from yesterday made me cry, thank you all so much. I thought I would give some backstory on how my boyfriend and I met. It was through a support group, as I mentioned. Growing up, until age 7, I had a very abusive dad. When I was 7, he tried to kill my mother and me. Luckily, the cops intervened and took him away. My mom charged him, and he was put away. When the trial was done, we moved, and my mom gave me Moo, don't judge the name, I was 8, from a local shelter. I didn't fit in at the new school, and Moo was the best thing in my life. Back to the support group. I shared my story, and my boyfriend confronted me afterward, saying he also had abusive parents growing up, and we bonded over our similar situations. I didn't realize how much control he had over me until recently. He convinced me to stop seeing my therapist, and we also stopped going to group. He used to tell me what to wear and how to style my hair. It's very curly, and recently, I've been straightening it because he would always say it looked better. A few hours ago, I invited him over for lunch and to talk. Luckily, Moo was in my room sleeping. I told him what you guys said, mentioning that if it were his dog, he would be upset. He blew up and told me that wasn't the point was that I wasn't committed to him or didn't care about us. He started throwing things, a glass, some books I had lying around, and some picture frames. It was terrifying. I had never seen him this angry before, and I just reverted back to what I used to do as a kid: curl up, cover myself as much as possible, and stay quiet. Bless my roommate, who came home during this fit. She had brought the security guard because, as she was walking in, she heard the shouting and items breaking. My boyfriend was escorted out. As he left, I just screamed, "Don't come back." I hope it sticks. I've blocked his number, and my landlady has been notified not to let him in, as have the guards. Next step is informing the neighbors. I don't really know what to do from here. I emailed my therapist. Hopefully, she will let me come back. My mom is on the way over right now, and my roommate is with me too. I'm so terrified. I didn't realize how much control he had over me. I thought all his early behaviors were just because he had clingy issues from his own upbringing. I'm going to take a bath, relax, let my hair go curly again, and cuddle my baby. I'm really glad Moo was in my room. Thank you all for the help. I didn't think any of this was wrong until you guys pointed it out. I still love him and feel bad for him. He had a crappy upbringing too, and I'm sure he's messed up from it, but I'm going to try to move on. After my cat dies, I'm going to move out of this place to somewhere he doesn't know about. Thank you all again. Edit. For everyone who wants to see Moo, I don't want to be identified in case anyone I know or may know in the future finds this. That's why I made a throwaway, as I do have a regular Reddit account. Imagine this: a pretty big tomcat, mainly white with 3 huge black spots on his back, leg, and the side of his head. Mine is the back right leg, and yellow eyes. 8-year-old me thought he looked like a cow, and cows moo, hence the name Moo. He's pretty derpy, but he's mine. Relevant comments. Commenter. I'm pretty sure this comment will get lost among the others, but maybe you'll see it, and I think you need all the support right now, no matter how small. I'm sure it's hard to let him go, and you still love him. It's not like you can fall out of love in a matter of seconds. But please stay strong and don't take him back under any circumstances. I'm sure you already know this, as you seem like an extremely bright and sensible lady, but maybe you need to read this in a weaker moment. Surround yourself with all the support you can: family, friends, therapy, and take legal action if needed. I don't care how awful his upbringing was. It might be a reason for his behavior, but it is never an excuse. Don't let history repeat itself. Take care, and cuddle your buddy. Ops response. Thank you. My mom got here a while ago, and she said the same thing: don't end up like she did. It's scary how I almost went into the same cycle. I love him, but some of the things he screamed at me, "I hate that cat, I'll kill him," among others, scared me. I could never expose my cat to that. I won't go back to someone who would hurt something so close to me. Second update 6 years 7 months later. Hi everyone, this is kind of crazy. I was on my regular Reddit account. I am an avid follower of this subreddit, when I saw my own post on here. I thought I would give some updates. Moo died around 4 months after this post. He was put down since his quality of life was declining rapidly, and while he could have lived maybe another 3 or 4 months, I didn't want that for him. He was in the last stages of kidney disease and needed so many drugs and subcutaneous hydration just to keep him going. I miss him every single day. I still have his ashes with me, and I make sure to keep him in a sunbeam on the window. That was his favorite thing. Regarding my ex. The embarrassing part is that I still felt so bad for him for so long. I saw a comment on the original post that said it sounded like I was just looking for validation that his behavior wasn't okay, and I think that's true. Besides controlling my hair, he also pretty much decided everything in our relationship: what we did together, what we ate, and the shows we watched. It seemed so small at the time that he never wanted to go to the places I picked or listen to the music I liked. He always had a reason at first, but then eventually, it was just because he didn't want to do those things. And for some reason, I let that happen. I did try to go back to that therapist and the group, but even after I told her and them what happened, I felt unsafe being there. For the first few months, he would stake out my apartment, and I couldn't trust that he wasn't also following me to therapy. Maybe stakeout isn't the right word, but he would leave letters, packages, and other things outside my building, so I knew he was there. He could be there at any time. The cops were not helpful since he never made himself known to me, although my roommate swears she saw him a couple of times across the street. They basically just told me to be careful. My therapist and I moved to phone calls for a while. I don't know if this will surprise anyone, but it turns out my ex-boyfriend was into no sugar. A lot of our fights, looking back, I now think he was high for at least some of them, especially the last blow-up. He ended up getting into a fight with some guys at a bar, and he was messed up when he got booked. This was probably about a month or so after Moo died. I broke my lease, which my roommate, who I'm still friends with, was really nice about. I moved back in with my mom, who lives in a different town, for a few months before finding another job just one town over from her. This was her suggestion. She wanted to keep an eye on me and make sure I didn't let him back into my life. She was, and still is, my rock. He got out after only a few months for good behavior, and while he didn't know where I lived, I am extremely thankful for my mom. There were times when I'd hear that his experience had changed him, through people I knew, and I would think, maybe he has changed. I was so lonely without Moo. My mom shut those thoughts down every time. She would ask me things like, even if you go back, what then? You get married and have kids? Do you think he would be a good father? It was sobering to think of what I experienced as a child being repeated. Eventually, I steeled myself with the help of a new therapist, recommended by my old one, and worked a lot on my self-confidence, on what I deserve. When COVID hit, I had a lot of time to break down parts of my life I hadn't before. I've tried being in relationships since, but there was always this underlying feeling of stress in each one. About 2 years ago, I realized that I think I'm asexual. Sex was always so uncomfortable for me. Even when it was physically enjoyable, I never really wanted the act. I just assumed this was trauma and a fear of intimacy. That's what most people and therapists had told me. I am currently in a relationship with a lovely person, and we are both asexual. We do kiss, but we rarely ever move beyond that. With them, there is no expectation for more. They also come from a less than happy childhood. They were in the foster system, but that isn't my story to share, so I won't. Just know that I am happy. We have been together for a year, and they are so considerate and kind. They bring me flowers at least once a month, make sure I can express myself, encourage my interests, and actually want to hear about them. Most of all, they love my curly hair, and they love cats. I never adopted another cat after Moo. I think I was terrified for a long time that if I did, they could be used against me. My partner has 2 cats, whom I love. We are currently trying to work out moving in together. My place has a better location, but theirs is larger. We've decided to try and find a completely new place together that we can both agree on, but the process for rentals right now is horrid. There have been 2 places so far that we applied to and didn't get. Anyway, my life is going great. I still have lots of trauma that I live with, but I know I can get back up when I fall. I have people I love who also love me. I probably won't respond to any comments, and I'll most likely delete this account in a few days. I don't need it anymore. But before I did, I thought leaving one last update was called for. Thank you for all your kind words and for helping me find the confidence to get out of that relationship. Much love to everyone.
Story 3. I adopted my little sister after our parents passed away in a car accident, and my girlfriend wants me to put her back up for adoption so we can have our time again. Posted by you/Throra891489. I'm 24M, my sister is 8F, and my girlfriend is 23F. Last month, when my parents were driving back from my uncle's house outside the city, they encountered a moose on a remote road in the forest. My father, who was the driver, swerved at high speed and crashed into a tree. They both died at the scene. Because it wasn't a frequently used road, they were only discovered the next day by a passerby. My sister has been staying with my grandmother, whom I'm not a great fan of. She used to hit me when I was a kid, most of the time deservedly so, but also often unjustified. She said she doesn't want to adopt my sister, so the next option was me. I agreed to it without question. We are very close, and in the end, she's my family, and I love her to the ends of the earth. My sister moved in with my girlfriend and me 2 weeks ago. Obviously, she's deeply scarred by what happened to our parents. We were both very close to them, and they were great people. She still doesn't talk much, only to me and sometimes my girlfriend. We take her to therapy twice a week, and there have already been improvements, even in such a short time. Yesterday, after I stayed with my sister in her bed until she fell asleep, I went to my girlfriend's in my room. She said we needed to talk about the situation. She told me we haven't had much time for each other since my sister moved in. It's a fair point, we've only had sex once, and that was when my sister was away. Even then, I wasn't really into it. She suggested that I reconsider the adoption and maybe hand my sister over to my uncle and aunt. I refused. They're already busy as it is, my uncle isn't allowed to work because of a heart condition, and since he didn't work long before being diagnosed, his disability fund isn't very large. My aunt works at a retirement home, which obviously doesn't pay well. They're also paying for my cousin's university expenses while juggling the care of my younger cousin, who's only 5. My girlfriend is in her last year of university, so we don't have much money either. Luckily, I found a job after university in my field that pays well, but things have still been tough financially. However, I'll soon start receiving government funds for adopting my sister. My girlfriend said she isn't ready to become a mother and take on all the responsibilities of a parent, which I understand. It's tough. She also said it's been putting a big strain on our relationship, which is valid. Before, we'd come home from work and university and have the rest of the day to ourselves, but now we have to pick up my sister from school, drive her to therapy, and take care of her when she's home. She doesn't like to be alone. I told my girlfriend that while she makes valid points, none of that changes the fact that this is my sister. I can't just abandon her because it's difficult. It won't be easy, but I have to see it through. I added that she doesn't have to, which probably wasn't the right thing to say because it set her off. She asked me if I had to choose between my sister and her, who I would pick. I didn't answer, and we got into a bit of a verbal fight, after which I went to sleep on the couch. At that point, I kind of broke down from everything that's been going on lately. I should like to add that my girlfriend and I have been together for 9 years. She knew my parents, and they loved her. She also knows my sister from birth, and I just can't understand how she could make me choose between them. I love both of them, and I don't want to lose either of them. I think I need advice on what to do or say to my girlfriend because I'm at a loss. Relevant comments. Commenter. Pick your sister. Your sister has no choice in this, your girlfriend has the choice to stay or leave. Ops response. Don't worry about that, it's never even been an option in my head. While I love my girlfriend a lot, she was my first everything. If push comes to shove and she makes me choose, I already know who I will pick, and unfortunately, it won't be my girlfriend. What I do want to do is try my best to make this work with her and hope we can see eye to eye, but I suppose that's up to her. Op adds an edit to his post. I also want to add, because people seem to think that I suddenly took my sister without even talking to my girlfriend, that's not the case. We talked about it at length, and she said that we needed to get her to come home to us, no matter what. That's why I was really surprised by what she had to say. I'm taking my sister to therapy in a bit. After I get back home, my girlfriend and I will talk about all this. Thank you. Update 1 day later. Okay, so we ended up talking about it for a while, and this is how it went down. At first, my girlfriend apologized profusely for the other night. She said she acted like a spoiled little crap and that it wasn't acceptable at all. I told her that I still love her the same, even though what she said was hurtful, and that I understand it's a huge jump for her. I explained that she doesn't need to be a mother, just a friend or a big sister to my sister, and that I don't want to push any responsibilities on her. I also said that if she'd like, we could both take a break from each other to process this. She refused and said she had already processed it, admitting that what she said was a result of everything changing so quickly, but she doesn't want or need a break because she realized she was in the wrong. She said she regretted what she said almost immediately but thought the damage was done and that I would break up with her, which made her scared to approach me. Next, she told me that she didn't mean to make me choose between them and even said that if someone posed the question to her in the same situation, she would drop them. She was thankful that I withheld that decision until we had a chance to talk. She admitted that her feelings arose from feeling distanced from me and jealous that I was spending a lot of time with my sister while spending less time with her as a result. However, she understands why. It's necessary for me to take care of my sister while she's hurting, and she said she wishes to help me as much as she can and wants to support me through this as well. She admitted that for the past 13 years, I've been her everything, and for those 2 weeks, she thought she was losing me. It terrified her, but after talking with some of her close friends, she realized she wasn't losing me, just that something very important had come up in my life that required my attention, which was previously focused mostly on her. She said that she wants me to know I can depend on her when it comes to responsibility for my sister and that she will do her best to be good to her. I can see that, compared to yesterday or the day before, my girlfriend really tried with my sister today. She initiated conversations with her, helped her with homework, and assisted her in picking out some clothes before going to the therapist. It was as if I saw my girlfriend go from being a child to an adult in a single day. I also admitted some of my faults, such as unintentionally neglecting her over the past few weeks. I realized that can have an impact on a person, as well as not really giving her much of a say in whether my sister would come here to stay. We came up with a few things, namely that we must definitely go to therapy sooner rather than later. She suggested leaving my sister with my aunt and uncle for a few hours over the weekend while we go and sort that out, and also that we need to balance our time more efficiently so we can have at least a bit more time to reconnect with each other. Then she told me that she's sorry for not helping me grieve or finding time to do that, and that our fight was a wake-up call for her. She realized she hadn't been supportive enough of me through what happened recently and promised to do whatever she can to make up for overstepping. It was at this point that the entire month hit me like a train. I cried a lot while she hugged me, offering words of reassurance and comfort, allowing me to release what I had been holding onto this past month. This was my girlfriend as I knew her, a very caring person, and I really hope that what she showed 2 days ago wasn't her real face, as people are saying, but merely a reaction stemming from insecurity. I guess only time will tell. I think it was a positive step, and obviously, there's still a lot more to work through, but it's a step in the right direction. When I came back home with my sister, we all played cards, and I just felt like we were a family. It's a good feeling. As of the time I'm writing this, I've put my sister to sleep. Tonight, she didn't take long to fall asleep at all. She pretty much drifted off after a forehead kiss and some cuddling. I'm in the living room on the couch right now, my girlfriend is taking a shower, and we're planning to watch a movie together. Honestly, I'm thankful to everyone who gave me advice over the past few hours. I don't think I could have kept a level head as much as I did if so many people hadn't offered different points of view and sound advice. One thing I learned from this ordeal is that communication, especially in times of stress like this, is vital, and that before making important decisions, it's good to talk to your partner and see if they might have an explanation for what they did while also being ready for the worst. I went into the conversation with my girlfriend prepared to break up if her view hadn't changed because, like it or not, for the time being, my sister is a priority. I think that 2 days ago, my girlfriend didn't understand why and couldn't accept it, but after talking to her and explaining why I have to take care of my sister like this, she now understands and accepts it. Once again, thanks to everyone who offered advice. While this is a great community, I hope I'm never in a difficult position like this where I have to ask for advice, although, who knows what will happen. Second update 2 months later. Hey people, it's been a while since my original post, and I have some free time today with not much to do, so I figured I'd write this, why not? A lot has happened since my first post. In the end, my girlfriend, now ex, I guess, couldn't deal with the fact that I had a new priority. I admit I wasn't the best at managing time between the two of them, and I spent a lot more time with my sister than with my girlfriend, but I think that's understandable, maybe. In general, my girlfriend was on and off with my sister. One day, she would be the nicest person to her, and the next, she would completely blow her off and be borderline mean. I had a few talks with her about how that needed to stop, but it would only work for maybe the rest of the week, and then the next, it would be back to square one. About 3 weeks ago, it erupted into a big argument. She accused me of not loving her anymore and of playing favorites. I told her they're not my children for me to be playing favorites, and that, obviously, for some time, my sister was going to need a lot more attention, since, she lost her parents. In the end, she went back to her ultimatum, my sister or her. I was angry at that point because she had been mean to my sister that day, and I told her she could pack her crap and find a place to sleep that night. I haven't seen her since, and quite frankly, I don't really want to. We texted for a bit, basically both sides confirming it was over and arranging when she could come for the rest of her stuff. As for my sister, she's a lot better. She doesn't stay in her room all day anymore, and she's slowly going back to her talkative old self. She still doesn't like being alone, but that was the same before the accident, so since my girlfriend moved out, we've been sharing a bed for comfort. She still wakes up at night crying sometimes, so it's better when I'm there, and frankly, it's a lot more comfortable. One thing I really regret is that my sister heard the whole fight, and she started apologizing to me for breaking me and my girlfriend up. I assured her it's not her fault at all, and if anything, she helped me see my girlfriend for who she really was. She still goes to her therapist, and it's helped a ton. She doesn't need me to be there while she falls asleep, and she doesn't panic when I go to the shop for 15 minutes. All in all, these past 3 months have been the hardest time in my life, but they've been eye-opening to my ex's disregard for my family, and, in a way, for me too. Sorry for no happy ending, but I guess this is how real life is. Edit. I would love to thank everybody for their kind words individually, but with this amount, it's crazy. So I want to give everyone who gave me advice and kind words a huge thank you. You're all amazing. These numbers are overwhelming, and I can't even express in words how it feels that so many people care. It's really something else. Didn't expect that strangers on the internet could make me cry either, so once again, a huge thank you. Relevant comments. Commenter. I remember this from 2 months ago, and I gave you the following advice: pick your sister. Your sister has no choice in this, whereas your girlfriend has the choice to stay or leave. You agreed with me at the time, and I'm glad that you adopted your sister. As you can see, your now ex-girlfriend showed her true colors and left. I'm glad that your sister is doing better. Make sure your sister understands that it is your ex's fault, not hers. A girlfriend is easily replaceable. I wish you and your sister the best. Ops response. Yeah, I remember everyone telling me to dump her, and honestly, I probably would have been doing myself a favor there, but I was blind. Commenter 2. Damn, in that first update, I was impressed with the girlfriend's apology and thought she really did have a realizing she's an adult now and needs to act like it moment. Then, in the next update, she screwed it all up again and showed she couldn't handle being an empathetic and understanding adult for long. It's really amazing when someone can express that level of self-awareness, and it sucks so much when it turns out to be a load of crap. Story 4.
I've fallen out of love with my partner after he told me he thinks his nephew is gay and wants to send him to military camp, but I'm scared that if I break up with him, the boy will be doomed. Posted by u/unique emergency 3407. 4 years ago, I, 35F, met Bob, 40M. Bob had recently become the guardian of his nephew Ben after the death of Ben's parents in a car accident. Ben was the same age as my son Jason, 11 at the time, now 15. At first, it seemed perfect. I was over the moon to have found a man who wasn't put off by the prospect of taking on a soon-to-be teenage stepson. Jason's father is not in the picture. Despite having very different personalities, the boys got along from the beginning, so Bob and Ben moved into my house in less than a year. Ben was always a quieter, more creative kid, whereas Jason is more athletic and boisterous. From the start, I got the sense that Bob understood Jason's way of being more than he did Ben's. At first, he would take them both to sports games, but Ben clearly had no interest, so before long, he just took Jason. At the time, it seemed like a natural choice. Ben was bored at the games, and Jason honestly reveled in having all of Bob's attention, but after that, things started unraveling. As they grew older, the differences between the boys became more obvious, their choices of clothing, hairstyle, friends, music, hobbies, etc., and so did Bob's preference. He started making little comments comparing them and encouraging Ben to be more like Jason. At first, it seemed like he was trying to be helpful, thinking that Jason's way of being was healthier, since he's more outgoing, has a more active social life, etc., based on Bob's own experiences. But after a while, there was a clear snidiness that was impossible to ignore. My son has always had a strong protective streak and a sense of fairness, and despite their differences and the late age at which they were introduced, he and Ben are very close. So Jason's reaction to Bob's remarks favoring him was to take Ben's side. He stopped going to games with Bob and generally stopped liking him, and for a while, he became openly hostile on Ben's behalf. That stopped after he and Bob had a major argument. Jason backed down at that point because, as he told me, he realized that if he kept making himself unpleasant, Bob and I might break up, and in that case, Ben would have to leave too. Since then, with a few exceptions, he has been coldly civil. Meanwhile, Bob has come to believe that Ben is gay based on what I consider spurious evidence, not that it matters to me whether he is or not. He wanted to send him to a military-style reform school, and when I vetoed that, his behavior toward Ben escalated to a subtle kind of downright nastiness. Needless to say, all of this strained Bob's and my relationship to the breaking point, and then broke it. Seeing his ongoing behavior toward a child who needs him, I can no longer look at him with anything but disgust. The thought of him touching me makes my skin crawl, and I desperately want him out of my house. We're not married, and it's still in my sole name, thank God. But now I have the same problem Jason was worried about. If I end the relationship and kick Bob out, Ben will have to go too, since legally, I have no tie to him whatsoever. He's 15 now, and although he has borne everything by stoically ignoring Bob, I can't in good conscience let that man be solely responsible for him. For what it's worth, I have always tried to stand up for him and get Bob to see that there are many types of boys in the world, and all of them are equally valid. Not to mention, I don't think Jason would ever forgive me if I did. I would happily take guardianship of Ben if I could. Even if Bob made no financial contribution, we could manage if we cut back on luxuries. My concern is that I'm far from sure Bob would agree. However he personally feels about Ben, Ben is still his flesh and blood, and Bob feels strongly about that. To be honest, I think it's part of the reason he resents Ben so much. Ben is the last of the line and isn't turning out the way Bob thinks his family should be represented. If I were to start a conversation along those lines and Bob refused to allow Ben to stay, it would be incredibly difficult to walk that back. The idea of having to continue playing his supportive wife to stop him from leaving on his own for another 2.5 years, until Ben turns 18, sounds like a nightmare, but the alternative is worse. What is the best way to manage and get through this? Relevant comments. Commenter. Talk to Bob and let him know you want to legally adopt Ben. It's probably wise not to mention that it's for breakup custody insurance. Just say that you've really come to see him as family, and both boys as your sons, and you want to make it official. If Bob agrees, you'll have some leverage for custody. Also, you aren't morally obligated to be in a sexual relationship with someone you dislike just to stay in Ben's life. That's not a fair requirement. I know you're worried the boys will be mad at you or hate you, including your son Jason. But if and when you break up with Bob, I'd talk to Jason honestly, one-on-one. Tell him that you love Ben, want to look out for him, and stay in his life as much as possible. Explain that you've been staying in the relationship for a while for that reason, but you've reached the point where you just can't keep being with a man you don't see as a good person. I would hope that Jason, who you say is naturally protective, will understand and be protective of you, his own mother, if you show him your feelings and good intentions, rather than condemn you for not sacrificing yourself. I very much doubt your son would expect that of you. None of us expect that of you. As for Ben, if you break up and Bob won't allow you any custody, talk to Ben about it. Tell him you love him, see him as a son, and that the way Bob treats him is wrong, and why you don't respect Bob. Make sure Ben knows he has done nothing wrong and that you very much want to stay a part of his life. Let him know you will try to do so as much as Bob allows, but given the current situation, things are uncertain. You'll be talking to a lawyer. And if nothing else, Ben should know that he's always welcome to move back in the minute he turns 18. Ops response. Thank you for saying that. You are right, I know Jason would understand if I explained it to him. I think my real problem is that if something happened to Ben, I would have a hard time forgiving myself. At the moment, I'm hoping it won't come to either of those situations. The comments here have given me some hope, and I am going to speak to a lawyer about our options. Update 1 month 1 week later. Hi again, everyone. I posted about my family problem about a month ago and was bowled over by the number of kind and extremely helpful comments I received. Someone requested an update, so I'm posting now to share what's happened since. To be honest, it's also to unburden myself. The boys are really sweet, but I obviously can't talk to them about these things, and there aren't many people in my life with whom I feel comfortable sharing all the details. I suppose I'm embarrassed. The week after my original post, I met with a family lawyer I know to go over my options. I actually wrote down the legal suggestions posted here to discuss with her, but unfortunately, after going over each one, along with several others in detail, we had to conclude that while some might technically be feasible, they would either take too long to be practical or require things from Bob or Ben that, for various reasons, were not ideal. Following the meeting, I spent some time reflecting and decided to take a long, hard look at our finances to see what might be affordable as a compromise, such as sending Ben to a good boarding school and paying tuition upfront so that if I later left Bob, it would be easier and cheaper for him to keep Ben there rather than move him to a different school. Anyway, I went over our financial records with a fine-tooth comb, and that's when I discovered that Bob had been cheating on me for the entirety of our relationship. It turns out that, prior to Ben's parents' death, Bob had been about to move in with another woman. This woman didn't want kids, so when Bob was suddenly faced with taking custody of Ben or seeing him placed in foster care, she made it clear she would not be involved. For the record, I can't say I blame her, I love my boys with all my heart, but asking someone who never wanted kids to parent a bereaved 11-year-old she has never met is not in anyone's best interests, in my opinion. When I confronted him about the affair, he didn't even attempt to deny it. He seemed ashamed and just asked what happened next. So I told him that next, he was going to get his stuff and get out of my house. But first, he had to ask Ben if he wanted to go or stay because it wouldn't be fair to disrupt the poor kid's life any further. Ben quickly said he preferred to stay, and Bob seemed, frankly, relieved. He moved out that weekend, and I haven't seen him since. We've been in touch by text to discuss financial arrangements, though, and last week he sent me money to cover Ben's basic expenses, nothing close to child support, but under the circumstances, I'll take it and be glad. From his attitude, I take it that he's seeing this as a long-term thing, but even if he doesn't, according to the family lawyer, his leaving Ben with me, even for a while, along with Ben's age and the fact that Bob is his guardian rather than his father, would make it easier to build a case for Ben to stay, even if Bob does try to fight it. The lawyer is confident that such a battle could be won, or at least dragged out until Ben is 18 and it doesn't matter anymore. So that, as you can imagine, has been an enormous relief. That makes it that much harder to admit that finding out about Bob has still hit me hard. The fact is that, even though I was absolutely done with him and wanted him out, there was a time I truly believed he wanted to be with me and that we could build a life together. I knew our relationship wasn't a romance for the ages or anything like that, but it was by far the best I'd had since before my son was born, and I really thought we cared for and valued one another. Now I realize that all he ever wanted from me was a mother for Ben. He as good as admitted it, and in retrospect, it makes complete sense. That's why he never wanted to get married or buy into my house, even though I offered, though now, of course, I am grateful, because he wanted to make it as easy as possible to split from me once Ben was old enough to no longer require my services. I think it might even explain why he was so hard on Ben and grasping at straws for a reason to send him away. I never expected it of him based on what else I knew, or I never would have been with him, but if he was blaming Ben for getting in the way of his life and simultaneously feeling guilty for it, that could turn a mild-mannered person mean, I think. Maybe he even thought that if Ben was away most of the time, the other woman would be willing to compromise for a few years? I don't know. I've even been wondering whether he decided to pursue me before we'd even met. The boys met first through an extracurricular where they became friends. It's possible that Jason mentioned my being single in passing, allowing Bob to identify me as potentially suitable before we ever met. I'm sorry this is such a mopey post. I truly am grateful for the way things worked out. I think it's the best possible solution for everyone under the circumstances and not one I could have achieved without Bob's help. And the boys have been wonderful. They didn't know I was trying to get Bob out anyway, so they've been treating me very gently, or as gently as you can expect teenage boys to be, anyway, and trying to pretend they aren't thrilled Bob is gone when I'm in the room. I'm glad of that, to be honest. I'm so grateful he's gone and that Ben is still safe here with us. I just need a bit of time to really remember it, I think. Relevant comments. Commenter. Bob may not have chosen you to be his partner, but Ben chose you to be his mom. That's a testament not only to what a crappy human your ex is but also to what a wonderful person you must be for that child, who has lost everyone, to have chosen you. I hope things get better soon for you and your boys.
Story 5.
My husband abandoned our 5-year-old and 9-month-old home alone to do God knows what, and he refuses to explain why when I know the excuses he gives me are utter lies. Posted by you/suitable mission 7422. My husband is 43, and I'm 31. We've been married for 7 years and have a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old. My husband left our children alone, and he refuses to admit it or tell me where he was. I'm furious and enraged, yet my husband keeps telling me I'm making a big deal out of nothing. This just happened this weekend. I am on the board of directors for a local nonprofit organization and had to attend an event for that organization this past Saturday. I was gone for most of the day. My husband was supposed to be home with our kids. I texted him a few times, and he responded. When I called around midday, he didn't answer, but that's not very unusual. Shortly after that, I got a call from my mom. She said my son had just called her, and when she asked him what he and his sister were doing, he said they were both watching TV. When she asked where their dad was, he said his dad wasn't there. My mom asked him several other questions, and based on his responses, she believed he was telling the truth, that my husband wasn't there and that there was no adult there at all. She said he didn't seem scared to be alone or worried about where his dad was. He had just called her to chat. He has a tablet designed for children with pre-programmed contacts he can call. It's only a few people, just family members. I left the event immediately and began texting and calling my husband repeatedly. He didn't respond to my first several attempts. It took him about 10 minutes, I was halfway home at that point, to reply. I was so confused, so worried, and really mad. I asked him where he was. He said he was at home. I told him our son had just told his grandmother that he was home alone with his baby sister watching TV about 15 minutes ago. My husband denied it, and I told him I was too upset to talk and drive. When I got home, I checked on the kids right away, and they were both fine. I asked my husband again, where was he? He said he was home the entire time and that he didn't know what our son was talking about. He claimed our son must have just been confused since he had gone to the basement to do some laundry. I ran down to the basement, and it was the same load of laundry I'd thrown in the dryer the night before. He hadn't done any laundry while I was gone. I asked my husband why our son would be confused about whether his dad was home or not. Where in our home would he have gone, and for how long, for our son to think he wasn't home? That doesn't make sense with a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old. You wouldn't leave them unattended that long. Why was he nowhere to be found when my mom asked my son to check certain areas of the house? I begged my husband to just admit it, to stop treating me like an idiot, and to stop accusing our son of lying. Just tell me the truth, because being lied to right to my face is so incredibly maddening. He insists he was home, but he can't come up with any believable story about where he was or what he was doing during that time. The way he answers me when I ask him about this and demand the truth is so dismissive. When I tell him, "You left our children alone," he quickly says, "No, I didn't," and then proceeds to change the subject. He says I'm overreacting and letting our son's imagination drive me crazy. I am convinced he was gone. We don't have a Ring camera, but at least one of our neighbors does. I'm so upset about this that I'm tempted to ask our neighbor for the footage. I had to go out to my car to scream and cry because I was so upset. Of course, I didn't want my kids to see my reaction. I can't put into words how devastated I am knowing he must have really left them alone, yet I have no proof and am being treated like I'm just a paranoid, overreacting mother by him. Relevant comments. Commenter. He's either on substances or having an affair if he's truly leaving them alone. To ease your mind, get the footage from your neighbor, but do not tell him. Furthermore, given your son's nonchalance about being left alone, this may not be the first time your husband has done this. Ask your son. Aside from the fact that this is highly dangerous, there are legal ramifications that both of you could face if the authorities are alerted that the children are being left home alone. You should also get nanny cams. These are discrete cameras, unlike a Ring camera, and place them in strategic locations throughout your home. Ops response. My mom said she and my son chatted for at least 5 minutes before she asked him where his dad was, and even then, she still didn't think anything was wrong, she was just trying to make conversation. He gave no indication that anything was wrong, and when she started asking him more questions about his dad's whereabouts, he didn't seem fazed. He definitely won't be left alone with them anymore unless it's a test where I am secretly watching the entire time. Commenter 2. I feel like the timeline is weird. How did your husband get home in the 10 minutes between answering your phone call and when you arrived? That doesn't mean I think he's telling you the truth, and I think you should get the ring footage to settle either claim. Is your husband friends with any neighbors? Ops response. If he was within 10 minutes of our house, well, he speeds on a good day, so if he was in his car and within 20 minutes of our house, he technically could have made it home in time. I've wondered if he actually got my initial panicked calls and texts, didn't answer, started racing home, and then finally picked up once he was home so he could pretend he was there all along. Op explains the conversation she had with her son. I talked to him after I had calmed down a little. His story was virtually the same as what he had told my mom, with a few more details, but nothing that gave me any clue about what my husband was up to. I asked him what he did while I was gone. He said Daddy made him pancakes, and they drank coffee outside. My 5-year-old doesn't actually drink coffee, but he pretends to in the morning and likes to sit outside with his hot coffee. His sister had a giant poop explosion, of course, he remembered that, and apparently, Dad was there to clean it up because he said she pooped everywhere. He had to help Dad give her a bath, and it was disgusting. Curious that my husband supposedly did laundry but left the poop-covered onesie unwashed. That was the highlight of his day, and he loved telling me about how gross it was. I asked him if Daddy left. He said, yeah, Daddy left, like it was no big deal. I asked him what he did while Daddy was gone. He said he watched TV. I asked him what he watched. I asked what his sister, a 9-month-old baby, was doing while Daddy was gone, and he said she was in the living room watching TV with him too. I asked if he was sure Daddy was gone. He said, yeah, Daddy wasn't home. I asked him how he knew, and he said Daddy's keys were gone and Daddy told him to stay in the living room with his sister. He has no real concept of time, so asking how long Daddy was gone wouldn't really mean anything. I didn't want him to feel like he was in trouble or like I was grilling him, and it sort of seemed like that's how he started to feel when I kept asking questions. Update 4 days later. Last weekend, my husband left our 5-year-old and 9-month-old home alone while I was gone and then refused to admit it or provide a plausible explanation. Since then, we've had many arguments about it. I've been living in a constant state of anger and frustration. I didn't want to fight about it anymore, but I couldn't help it and kept bringing it up again and again. I couldn't lay low and pretend to get over it while I waited for him to do it again and catch him in whatever was going on. I also knew that demanding he tell me the truth wasn't going to get me anywhere since he had been refusing to talk and deflecting for days. All it was doing was making me enraged and feel like I was about to have a brain aneurysm. I told him to hand me his phone so I could check his location at the time. He refused. He said he wouldn't do it and that it was a violation of his privacy, that he won't be treated that way, and that he refuses to give in to my delusions. Do you think I enjoy being in a situation where I have to beg my husband to show me his phone so I can see where he was? I hate it. I don't want to live that way. I told him it's simple, if he was really at home the entire time, just prove it. Why wouldn't he want to clear this whole thing up? I got so mad that he wouldn't turn over his phone that I told him I was going to the neighbors to get their doorbell footage. At first, he was like, fine, go do it. He didn't think I actually would. He knows I don't like to air drama to others, so he probably figured I'd just swallow all of this crap he's been giving me. Luckily, I was totally driven by anger at this point, so nothing was going to stop me from going to the neighbors. When I actually started to go out the door, he tried to stop me and followed me outside. I felt pure anger rushing through my veins, nothing else. The neighbor, who I've probably said fewer than 10 words to in the entire time we've lived here, told me he'd send me the footage. I went home, told my husband that the neighbor didn't have the footage from that day anymore, and said I just needed to go to the store to cool off. So I put the kids in the car and went to park somewhere while I waited for the neighbor to send me the footage. I have the neighbor's number now too, and he told me that if I need any more footage, he'd be happy to give it to me. The video shows a blue car that I don't recognize pulling up and parking in our driveway. A blonde woman gets out of the car and walks toward my house. She walks along the outside of our garage toward the gate leading to our backyard. The gate is too far back and out of the way to be seen on the doorbell footage. She and her car were there for 23 minutes. Imagine that, the car leaves right around the time my husband called me to say he was home and had been home the entire time, as I was rushing home in a panic and calling him repeatedly. There are two possible places they could have gone. She either came in through the side door of the house, which provides direct access to the basement, or, what I think is more likely, they were in the farthest area of our yard, which is a gated pool area. Immediately behind our house is a grass lawn, then a few steps down leads to a patio, and beyond that is a fully gated area where the pool is. It's not what you typically picture when you think of a gated pool. It's a full, 6-foot wooden fence all the way around, plus even taller landscaping for added privacy. You can't see into the area at all unless you're inside. I think it's more likely they were back there because my son said his dad's keys were gone, and we keep that gate locked with a key. The pool is closed for winter, but there is one small building back there, sort of like a shed we converted into a changing area, as well as a covered patio with furniture. I'm convinced that's where they were. So, technically, he was home, but in an area completely removed from the house, where he wouldn't have been able to see or hear the kids if something happened. I asked him how he could explain this. What were they doing? I obviously don't need him to tell me what they were doing, but for some reason, I still had hoped that he'd finally be honest. He wasn't contrite. He showed no remorse. He was just like, yeah, she was here, but I obviously never left. Who is she? How long has this been going on? And if he's going to be such a disgusting, despicable excuse for a man, why couldn't he at least have found any other time and any other lie or excuse, rather than when he was home alone with our kids? I told him I know this has happened before and demanded to know how many times he's done this while home alone with the kids. He swears this is the only time, but he still doesn't have the balls to confess to what they were doing. I don't believe him that this was the only time, FYI. I still have so many questions, and I feel like my heart is beating 200 times a minute. My blood pressure is through the roof. I've cried a lot, sobbed, begged for somebody to help me, yelled, screamed, and ordered a bunch of books about divorce and custody. And you know what? The day after our multiple explosive fights, after he put his hands on me and I saw the evidence, he acted like everything was totally normal, as if none of it had ever happened. I woke up still seething, exhausted, broken, and he was acting like everything was fine. He said he was ordering breakfast to be delivered from our favorite place. He asked if I wanted to go to the store together later and try a new chili recipe tonight. What? Why would I want to do any of these things with him now? There was absolutely no acknowledgement of anything he'd done or what had transpired between us over the past few days. He deserved an Oscar for how well he was able to act like none of it had happened, completely comfortable and unfazed. I know it's a waste of my energy, but I just desperately want him to admit the full truth of what he did that day and any other day with this woman. I want to hear it from him. It won't change what he's done, but he could at least have the respect and decency to be honest now that he's been caught. That's a ridiculous thought, though, right? How foolish of me to expect this man to show decency and honesty now. If he were a decent and honest man, he wouldn't have had a strange woman over at our house and been out of sight from our kids for 23 minutes. His continued denial, his refusal to admit to anything other than the bare minimum, and his attitude, like I'm somehow being controlling or infringing on his rights by asking for information, that's almost more hurtful than him cheating on me. Relevant comments. Commenter. So he screwed a blonde in the back while leaving the kids unsupervised. Sorry, but that is the only explanation. He wasn't planning a surprise for you? He wouldn't ditch the kids' safety for that. He left the kids alone for something selfish. And he was brazen and comfortable enough to bring his side piece to your house. At this point, every word out of his mouth has been a lie. You should ask the neighbor if he's seen that car before. Ops response. I know they were screwing. I'm not trying to delude myself into thinking she came over to talk or for a cup of tea. I just want him to admit it. It's driving me crazy that he won't admit to it even though he's been caught. Commenter 2. Weird thing is, if he had shown his location, it would have been at home and probably put you more at ease that he didn't leave. He is garbage, especially for doing that crap when he has the kids, leaving them on their own. He'd rather cheat while risking his kids getting hurt or dying. Disgusting. Ops response. Yes, it doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't he have just given me his phone? It makes me think there are other things on his phone besides his location that he doesn't want me to see. Commenter 3. She kind of snuck in there that he put his hands on her? The acting like everything is fine and doting on her afterward is the abuse cycle. He's desperately trying to sweep it under the rug and gaslight her until she's too exhausted to keep starting trouble, and he'll get more and more bold with the abuse over time. Ops response. He grabbed my arm to stop me from going to the neighbors. He didn't hit me. Commenter 4. I'm really concerned about your mental health. I read the original post too. Maybe I watch too many psychological thrillers, but this comes across like he's a psycho intent on making you look unhinged so he can have you admitted to a psych ward or, at the very least, divorce you. avoid alimony and child support, and keep the house and kids. I'd pack up the kids if I were you, go to your parents for a bit, and cool off. Call a lawyer stat. Start the divorce and keep that recording. Ops response. I'm concerned about my mental health right now too.